there is traditionally things most people have conscious control of, and there are things that you have no conscious control of, and there are things kind of in between where you might have some control on some days or others. And I
Yeah.
think with a really intense meditative practice, specifically ones that seeks to gain control of probably first awareness and then control of body states, I think you can expand that borderline from I control maybe some of my thoughts to I control a pretty decent amount of my thoughts, to that I can actually control various autonomic things that are typically have no conscious inroads, but I can move the margins and actually control them.
Mm.
Uh, that doesn't, to me, violate any laws of physics whatsoever. I've never seen the laws of physics violated. It doesn't violate the laws of physiology whatsoever. I think the most scientific way you could claim something is that generally autonomic things are not in conscious control, but there are people with enough practice who can get them somewhat into conscious control.
Mm-hmm.
And that, first of all, that's incredible. The whole
Yeah.
idea that there are folks so in control of their faculties that they can heat their body up and not die of cold. Like, you could heat your body up in a bunch of different ways. Like if they scare or excite you enough, your body temperature goes up. But if you can just do that and take away the emotions of fear and excitement and just drive up blood flow and metabolism just through practice, wow. And
Yeah.
also, it doesn't seem to violate any rules of physiology or neuroanatomy or anything like that. Like, it'd be real curious if you just had no neurons or no blood flow to an area and you can change that area like that. I would be very curious about.
Yeah.
This thing is entirely within the realm of physiology. It's just, I think the problem is that people replace with incredulity, sort of an argument from ignorance situation way before they've thought something through. So they'll be like, well, people being able to heat up their bodies through the autonomic system, that's impossible. And there's not really any textbook that says it's impossible. It just says it's either not been demonstrated or typically does not operate that way. And I think people want to take that next step and go, that's BS. Because a lot of people don't want to contend with the fact that maybe we as humans don't know everything about our bodies yet. And sometimes the body works in ways that are like actually pretty mysterious. They're logical, but we just didn't know that was a possibility. I mean,
Yeah.
you see a 100-meter sprinter at the Olympic Games run, and you're like, I could have never thought a human being would run that fast. Even that's
Yeah.
a shock in and of itself. But to use the body in very different ways, I think is totally possible. But also, to me, not at odds with the mechanistic view of the universe. In fact, if I may, I think my own meditative practice has brought me to the clear realization that the universe is entirely mechanistic, including us, who are entirely machines.
Hmm.
That was one of the earliest revelations I had in my meditative practice. Maybe
That's
that's an
interesting. What is?
illusion.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot of truths simultaneously happening. That would be one of the truths, and I think that you could certainly paint a picture where human is a machine and this is a mechanistic universe, and there's probably other truths that also could be held. But what is that? What is that? Can you say more about that? What does that mean? Humans are machines, and this is a mechanistic world.
Yeah, so there are claims about different worlds and different truths. For example, you could have a spiritualistic approach where you say, look, the sky is blue because of whatever atoms and refraction. The sea goes like this because of the molecules bond to each other. But when you look at someone else that you love, what you experience is entirely in the spiritual realm. It's not physical. When animals communicate, you see another animal in the forest, you do this, you do that. They look at you, you connect, you stare a deer in the eyes. That's not in the physical machine world of essentially building blocks of molecules. There is a connection there that's in a spirit realm. It's in a different realm. It's an ascended realm, or a realm that sort of belies everything.
Mm.
And what I would say is, in my thinking, the machine realm is the basic realm, and then everything else is constructed by machines. So your ability to have an experience where you stop and the deer stops and he looks at you and you look at him and you channel positive thoughts and he kind of just eats some grass and walks away slowly. You're like, oh, I just fucking bonded with a deer in nature. Holy crap.
Yeah.
The only reason that's possible is because the deer is a very, very profoundly, impressively well-constructed sensory and thinking machine. And
Yeah.
so are you.
And
And then
feeling machine.
say that again.
And feeling machine.
Feeling
If you
machine,
have any
totally. Yes,
differentiation between
yes.
the
And
two.
feelings are actually just very simplified versions of thoughts. That's another thing we could get into.
Hmm.
So I think animals almost exclusively feel. They probably don't think much in the way that we think. And then so the feelings, they're made by the machine. They are the machine. I mean, your brain makes all of your feelings for you. So at the end of the day, it is all just machines, but the machines create these tiers of experience, and some of the higher order experiences, like being able to talk to a friend, gee whiz, it takes a lot of thinking to be like, how is this possibly just reducible to mechanical interaction? And it is. And that understanding that it is reducible to mechanical interaction both simplifies the view of the world considerably and can actually be quite therapeutic if you work on it in a meditative practice. Because, for example, how beat up about your ego can you possibly get when you realize your ego is just machine architecture? Like, it is constructed. People will say the self is an illusion, right? In the Eastern practice. In the Western practice, we typically say that's ridiculous. Of course, the self is real. But if you look into modern neuroscience and modern neural network architecture, the self is constructed of many parts. It's a big circus to try to make it look like there's a self in there. For example, what word do you say next in a sentence is actually not entirely a conscious process. What word is coming next is predetermined by neural networks you're not consciously aware of.
Yeah.
Once what comes out of your mouth comes out of your mouth, it's been shown through a split brain experiment and a couple other really ingenious ways. You just try to make sense of it the best you can. You can become aware of this process. So you can say things and be like, that came out of the ether. Do you ever mess with a GPT-4, Chat GPT, or anything like that?
Yeah, it's one of the main icons of my phone.
Oh, no way. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So GPTs, so the way your brain works in many regards is very similar to a GPT structure. It really is a GPT
Sure.
if you think about it long enough. And so, Chat GPT can do a ton of things, but it actually can't predict what it's going to say next. It just has to say it. And then you can ask it questions about what it says and it tries to make sense of it. Our brains are no different. So what you think is the real you is just a script that's run off of GPT. And then you, quote unquote, which is just an executive oversight process bereft of much of anything, it lets you relive that and re-examine it. It's just all machines. It's all neural networks all the way down. And if your meditative practice is deep enough, and if you're sufficiently or more and more so informed on how thinking architecture happens in machines, you realize this is an insane experience you can have where you can be aware of the fact that you are software.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And every perception and experience you have is software. And holy crap, is that intense the first time you really come to it. You're like, oh my God. Now it can be not intense. It's intense if you come to it on like mushrooms or weed. You really feel the intensity of that revelation. When you're sober and perhaps in a calmer place, it's at least a very interesting revelation that to me unifies all of the seeming contradictions between the different kinds of worlds there are. Because I'm pretty sure there's only just one world, the real mechanistic world, and we're all constructed from it and by it.
Hope you guys enjoyed that conversation. If you did, feel free to tag a part of it. You can tag me at Aaron Alexander on Instagram. Recently changed the handle from Align Podcast to Aaron Alexander. That was a long process of procuring that mofo, but we were able to get it, which is cool, convenient. So you can tag me at Aaron Alexander. You can also tag Sean at Sean Model, I believe is his Instagram handle. And feel free to jump over to the Align Podcast YouTube channel. Subscribe over there so you get each week's videos. That is it. That is all. Thank you all. I'll see you next week.